I'm here because of our partnership. There is no more significant platform out there that is so committed to being open.
So I know you spend a lot of time thinking about retail media, which is one of the hottest buzzwords right now in the industry. For those of us that don't spend all day, every day thinking about it,
What?
I know, can you imagine? Can you share with us a bit about why you think this is such a hot topic and kind of how we've gotten to where we are today?
Yeah, it's a real multi-layered question that you're asking. And having been in the retail media space for a little while, there's kind of an evolution that's happened. The first moment was when Amazon actually started to release some more detail around the financial perspective of the ad business for them. And for every retailer, that caught the attention of every CFO within the company because they started to recognize that as a retailer, you can actually have this value creation that you wouldn't typically expect from a retailer. And if retailers were to be able to continue to evolve, to keep up with the ways that their customers were shopping them, they needed to find other sources of profit and revenue so that they could reinvest back in the business and enter retail media. So to have the support of a CFO and the executive suite of the retailers was really important to all of us who could understand everything that Jeff talked about and the great promise of what retail media could be. And for advertisers, when you start to think about the scale of first-party data that every one of us sits on top of, we see over half of the US adult consumer population go through our doors. We see them about 2.5 times a week. So we have an enormous amount of data points on customer behaviors and what large audiences of people are actually doing and buying, and even how their lives are changing based on what their shopping patterns are. So the ad industry, especially with the looming threat of cookies going away, are really looking for scaled data sources that they can start to execute their media campaigns off of. And then on top of that, if you're a CPG, we can actually show a business outcome. So there's just a lot of richness in terms of what retailers have to offer to the ad ecosystem that really give the possibility of a non-walled garden future some reality. And I think that's why a lot of us are in this space, because we have been in the media industry for a while. We know where the pressure points sit. We know that things that we've been doing since the 60s or the 90s, either way, it's too long. And it's time for us to find different ways to do it. And so that's, I think, from my perspective, that's why everyone's taking notice.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious, you talk about this amazing data asset that you all sit on top of, and yet you and your team have frequently talked about the last mover advantage, which is a bit counterintuitive when you usually hear that reference. Can you talk a bit about how you've used that to turn it into a superpower and how it's informed the products you're creating, especially for some of those off-site applications?
Yeah. It's easy to come in late into the marketplace. And a lot of us on my leadership team, we have retail media experience, so we've had a couple at bats, we've tried a couple of things, we've seen which partners are built for longevity and which ones have their weaknesses. More importantly for Albertsons, because we are a company going through an enormous transformation overall, we don't have legacy data systems. We don't have what we lovingly call the Frankenstack that we have to try to work around. Most of the systems and the ways that we've centralized our data, the ability to take advantage of the advanced computing power that exists today, all of those things are really working to our advantage right now. We have a marketplace that's tested a lot of things for us, so we don't have to. So we can just kind of go to next generation of what's up for retail media. There'll be a moment where we won't be the late mover and we won't have that advantage, and we'll have to evaluate whether or not we're sitting on the Frankenstack. Yeah. But for right now, it is an advantage that we have.
Amazing. And as you think about that evolution, the natural question is it working? And we hear all the time from buyers that they have a need for measurement, whether it's in-flight campaign measurement, optimization. What role do you see measurement playing as you think about the offerings you bring to market?
Well, the first thing is that measurement needs to be standardized because we all are snowflakes. We all grew up in very different ways. We do measurement a little bit different. We build our audiences a little bit differently. So it is incredibly complicated for a client, for an advertiser, to try to normalize us so that they can compare us to each other. But the more important piece about measurement is really about performance. And we focus a lot on incrementality. Because we think that it's really important to be able to prove that we made something incremental happen when we're actually reporting the performance back to a client. It's all about measurement. And the key for us is when we start to go after non-endemic. So what if an automotive client wants to advertise through a retail media company? What's measurement look like in that case? So figuring out how to evolve off of just being able to show that products move through our store, but that products moved is the next frontier for our measurement.
Awesome. I love that focus on performance, not just here's a standard measurement report. And I'm curious, within the retail space, it is one of the more fragmented areas. As I look at all of the different retailers that have access to data, you touched on the need for standards when it comes to measurement, and yet I know you've been a champion of standardization across the board, which may be pretty uncomfortable for some companies that have said, I've been doing it this way since the 60s, since the 90s, and I think I've got it figured out. What's your approach to that?
Yeah, I think the way that we think about standardization is that we should just be really clear on what is the right baseline. And this isn't, Albertsons Media Collective isn't going to come out to the industry and say this is what everybody should be doing, but to create a framework where a client can start to ask the right questions so that it's easier for them to understand how to compare us to each other. Without the standardization, what's happening right now is a lot of CPGs in particular are hiring a lot of extra headcount to try to do the translation from one retail media network to another. And now in a space where there's a new retail media network birthed every day, it's just becoming more and more complex. So it's on us, if we really want to realize the full potential of retail media as a media sector, it's on us to set more of the standards that you've seen other media channels or categories go through over time. It's on us to set those standards together so that the barriers to engaging with us drop significantly.
That makes sense. And Jeff talked a bit about the need for an open internet and the reason that walled gardens aren't going to be the future as we think about what success looks like. Many retailers have also seen their retail media networks as their own version of walled gardens, and yet you've really focused on the need for an open and connected ecosystem.
Yep.
Can you talk to us a bit about why you think you're so different in that regard?
I think Jeff nailed it when he had the win-win versus I win.
Yep.
The way that I think of it as 3 wins, not just 2. And so if our customers win, then our clients or the advertisers win, and if both of them win, then we win. And I have not seen a long-term media proposition do well if they are the only winner. I wouldn't complain if I were Mark Zuckerberg and had all of that success that Meta has had. But there's anxiety in the industry because people feel like they don't have the transparency that we all wish to have. And I actually think that it's not only open internet, I think it's open media ecosystem that is coming because you have new major players coming into the marketplace that can even crack open, not that it's closed, but you can crack open linear TV and start to understand how that performs in a very different way too. We call ourselves a co-op garden. We believe in transparency. We believe in sharing how we perform measurement and how we develop our audiences so that clients can believe in the results that they see.
I love that. And so, you've talked about performance, you've talked about transparency. The natural next piece for me would be scale. And I'm curious to hear about, how you convinced your team to focus on integrating across the open ecosystem, how you thought about a partnership with someone like The Trade Desk and starting to activate that. What's the history there?
Yeah, to me, that's just a no-brainer. I'm here because of our partnership. But there is no more significant platform out there that is so committed to being open and the scale of it is significant for us. So to have a partner who can help us start to understand how we can bring our audiences to the marketplace in a very different way and in an open platform environment is incredibly important to us. It's one of the commitments that even, the CEO of our company who I report to, we have a real commitment to be true, open, transparent partners with every client or vendor, depending on which side of the business you sit on, to have an open, trusting relationship with them. And the trade desk allows us to do that. And so to be able to play with our most important assets, which are our audiences and our measurement, and to bring them to a marketplace in a way where it's easier for the industry to access those things is, to me, the future of where retail media is going. Procter & Gamble does not need me to buy more Facebook inventory for them, but they do see the value in the audiences that we know so well because they're coming in our stores so often, and it is so much of the adult consumer population. So to find a new way to bring that to market is really important, and it doesn't necessarily have to be attached to a media buy that I make.
Yep, I love that. And I think you have such a unique and valuable asset when you think about the role you can play in being such a key partner to someone like Procter & Gamble that thinks about advertising kind of wherever consumers may be, rather than needing to look at it in a small silo in order to leverage that power of the data. So I think that's amazing. You've talked a lot about how you've evolved and what that's looked like. Clearly lots on your plate. As you think about this upcoming year, what are your priorities and what do you hope to have the team accomplish this coming year?
We spend a lot of time getting feedback from clients, not only on behalf of Albertsons Media Collective, but also retail media in general. And the one thing that we do continue to hear loud and clear is the amount of complexity that it takes to be able to place media buys, measure them, compare them across all of the different retail partners that they work with. And to me, that pain point has got to be the number one focus right now to take the rub out of that. But I am not going to do that and mortgage the future. So at the same time that we're focusing on some of the basics in terms of how we go to market, it's also important that we continue to lean into innovation and really look at some of the longer term pain points that exist right now, which is a lot of media that just is not as accountable as it could be when it's married with some of the assets that retail media can bring to the marketplace. And so those are the two areas. I think CTV, given the amount of money that's going to streaming, connected TV, eventually linear TV, the way that retail media and the audiences that we have and the measurement that we have could evolve video, television, is super exciting for me, and that is not that far off.
Amazing. And hopefully some of the announcements today will help make that buying experience easier, make the data more core to that flywheel. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious, as I think about the innovation you have and the perspective of how you can reinvent, are there any brands that you think are doing this really well or that you look to as market leaders that you either want to try to emulate or you think they're pretty close to what it should look like?
Yeah, we see some of the agency holding companies are really progressive in how they're thinking about using some of the different assets that we're all bringing to the market. I personally am especially excited with those who want to lean in on CTV and linear TV. Yeah. Having grown up in the ad industry, and that's what's been the same since the 60s in terms of the way that we buy it and measure it. I'm over-exaggerating, but you get the point. And then you have, clients like Coke who really want to lean in and try to do different things that are really pushing for a clear innovation agenda. I think the soft drink category in general does a really good job of leaning in on innovation. But I have to say most advertisers, the brands, are really pushing for innovation and really figuring out ways to hold advertising more accountable. That's not new news. But they are recognizing that retail media is one of the easiest ways to do that now. And that while a lot of other things like marketing, mix modeling, and all of that is getting kind of wrestled to the ground, there's a lot of learning that can happen with retail media right now, and we're seeing a lot of the biggest brands lean in because of it.
Awesome. Well, I love that, and I'm so appreciative of your partnership and your willingness to reimagine what it can look like, especially in an ecosystem that may be a bit stagnant, and to really re-envision that. So thank you so much for your partnership. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here with you.
Thank you.